Okay, I'm going to make this a short video. I had mentioned in an earlier video, if you've been watching, that there's something called, something that can be recognized as fake Ethernet cable. And I have this old fake cable here. And you might ask, well, what do you mean fake cable? Isn't a cable just a cable? If it works, it works. And maybe fake is not the best word, but not up to spec. So for example, this is supposed to be CAT5 cable. It's not. If you were to use a testing device, you would find that out quickly. Does it work at 100 megabits per second? Yeah, most of the time, yeah, and it's pretty stable. But it's not good cable, even if it works. And one of the biggest things I'll show you first, one of the biggest things that stand out is, apart from the cable cracking very easily, you see the plastic just easily breaks, is if you look inside, yeah, we look in there, this is not twisted pair cable. And CAT5 cable, CAT6, it's all twisted pair. This is not. Maybe they saved a few inches, maybe a bit of wiring to make this, but that's like, you know, penny pinching, trying to cut costs down to the bare minimum. I can almost guarantee that they probably use different type of alloys for the metal, so it probably doesn't have the same characteristics as an actual Ethernet cable. And also, we can do a little flame test. The out-of-spec cables, if I recall, I mean, this has been a while since I've done these tests, but the out-of-spec cables usually tend to burn longer. We'll see how that does. And you see how it's okay. The question is, would that create a fire? I don't know. It doesn't smell nice, but so we'll see how that. This is the first time I do the test on this, so. And the question, of course, is, well, it might be safe enough. So we won't worry about that. Ah, that stinks. I'll probably do the flame test on the other one as well. So what happens with these cables is you get them, they work fine, cool, 100 megabits. Well, you know, the Cat5e standard should work at gigabit speeds. These cables don't. And it's not just about that. It's also, for example, if you're trying to do a HDMI over Ethernet setup, these cables will not work for that. If you're doing a USB over Ethernet, anything like that, anything that's using the Ethernet cables to, you know, for example, extending the HDMI signal using the properties of Ethernet to get it across. That lack of twisted pair means that this will be susceptible to a number of interference. If you run it across electrical wires, if you get it near fluorescent lights, Ethernet cables are already susceptible to interference. But this is, you know, asking for trouble. And you might save a few bucks on eBay, on AliExpress. This junk. It's not worth it. It'll fall apart. And even from a safety standard, you know, it's fine for home use, I guess, to an extent. But even then, you know, I wouldn't recommend it. So then, how does that compare to a real cable or an authentic cable? For example, we have I guess this should be a Cat5e cable, and I've shown this before. Yeah, Cat5 patch cable. And if we open that up, what we see in here are twisted pairs. As you see, what they call twisted pairs. And as you see, each pair of cable is twisted. And that is done to mitigate any interference that might exist, to eliminate what they call crosstalk. That's what that is. Yeah, that's it. And you notice you notice how much more difficult it is to pry these apart. It doesn't fall apart, it doesn't crack apart like the other ones. If I bend it, it's gonna bend, and it'll probably be like that for years. And if we do a little flame test, hopefully we'll see that they have different properties. So let's do a little flame test. And it's about the same, so at least we can say that with the out of spec cable, it might not be so bad, you know. That might not be the worst part. Breathing these fumes in is probably not that great. But there you go. And I find that a lot of, if you order Cat6 cable, Cat5 cable, you're going to see a lot of problems. What I recommend is that when you buy these cables, buy from sellers who actually show the spec sheets, who actually show the diagrams of how the cable is built. Because yes, sellers can fake that. They can fake and they can put diagrams of real cables, of authentic cables, or in-spec cables with shielding, with the twisted pairs. But what I find is that if sellers take the effort to show you and to make sure that you believe that you're getting the cable that you want, it usually is going to be what you want. Because the sellers who just put a cable up, oh, this is a Cat6 cable, no other information, just some pictures of the cable from the outside. Those are the sellers that typically, I mean, not all of them, of course, but that's when you, especially if you're going to the bottom of the barrel, you want to get a, I don't know, 5 meter patch cable, for $2. Yeah, it's probably going to be out of spec. It might work for you. You might not be able to get those gigabit speeds that you want. You likely won't ever be able to get 10 gig speeds out of them or further. So do be aware of that. I still recommend, if you can you can always order from sites like AliExpress and eBay. Just have a keen eye on that, and because the problem, of course, is, for example, a 5 meter cable here in Finland, a Cat7 cable is usually about, I would say, about 30 euros, and that's a lot of money for a 5 meter cable. When you can go online and you can probably find it for 6, 7, 8, maybe 10, third of the price, as good a quality. You just have to know who you're buying from. Of course, if you don't, if you don't want to deal with that mess, of course, do buy from your local seller, as they usually will, they will provide actual cable, because it's not just a matter of quality for consumers. When you're putting these cables in buildings, there's usually a lot to say about in-spec cable. And these are, what you call low voltage cables. So a lot of times, even the out-of-spec cables, unless you're carrying a signal up and down floors, from a legal standpoint, they might be okay, depending on the country you're living in, the building codes. But still, if you're going out of your way to put in cable, might as well make sure it's good cable. And even, if you're running it across the floor, you don't want this. That just sort of, that wear and tear just from normal use, man, that's pretty bad, honestly. Like, Like there's really no excuse for that, and yeah, it's very low quality, and honestly, a lot of times it's hard to test for it. I mean, nobody at home is going to have the testing devices. You know, it's just something to watch if, for example, you notice that your connections are, for example, you know that you have a 1 gigabit router, per Ethernet port, or you have a 10 gigabit, and for some reason it's not connecting at the speeds, it's dropping down to 100 megabit or 10 megabit connection, and that usually comes down to the fact that the cable is out of spec. So I might have rambled on a bit about that, but hope that helps somebody out. And of course, if you did like this video, do go ahead and hit that like button. If you didn't, you watched this far, so might as well like anyway. Otherwise, do remember, have a good day, a good morning, and a good night. Bye-bye.